Okay. Oh, somebody already. All right, so today I'm going to be talking about Pluto moving into Aquarius, the double Aries New Moon, the double Aries New Moons. We just had one, and we have another one coming in April, and other stuff going on in spring. So I'm just going to pull up my little calendar so I can know what I'm talking about. And it's giving goth today because I put on a black liner that made my lips look gray now. Y'all, let me go to my notes so I can stay on track. Feel me? Oh, I could just let me pull up my calendar here on the side. Let's do this. Pull up my Bob Astrology calendar. Let's put you right over here. There we go. And back to YouTube. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the recent transit of Pluto moving into Aquarius. So it's going to be here until, I think, if I remember correctly, like June 11th, and then it's going to retrograde back into Aquarius. And then we also had Mars just move into Cancer on the 25th. Yeah, the 25th. And then these bloods are hella bright on my face. I can barely see. Okay. But it does. Might be better, but or not. I don't know. Okay, whatever. So yeah, and yeah, we also had a new moon in Aries on the 21st, right before the Pluto shift. And then there's going to be another new moon on April. I think it's April 21st. If I'm thinking correctly, I want to say it's April 21st. Let me see. Yeah, oh, no. The 19th, but close. Yeah, so first of all, I'll start with the new moons. One, we know that new moons are all about new energy, setting new intentions, kind of things being completely, it's like where seeds get planted, right? It's the darkness. It's when the moon is covered. We can't see the moon that night. That type of energy. And in Aries, it's a very active moon. Aries is fire, right? It's also that initiating, starting fire, right? It happened right after the spring equinox, which is the first day of spring. And if you're someone with common sense, you would say that this is literally the new year, right? So thinking about the full moon, the new moon being in Aries, that energy and having two of them like back to back. So you'll have the two Aries new moon, in between that you'll have the Libra full moon, right? But that's a lot of cardinal and initiative energy. So if you haven't already began putting action to your words, then this is like a double down of like, you need to do what you're saying you want to do. You need to start putting actual action into the things you want to manifest. Like we can align and we can, dream, and we can create the space for new things to come in. But we also, Aries teaches us that we also have to move towards those things as well, right? This is one of those signs that is all about action and movement and force and getting shit done, basically. So having two Aries new moon is really like, it's time to get shit done. Literally, like that's as literal as it gets. Like whatever you've been planning or organizing or constantly looking over, right? Before the Aries new moon, the first Aries new moon, we had the Virgo full moon, right? And what is Virgo all about? Virgo is all about dotting your I's, crossing your T's, making sure shit is straight, eliminating things that don't work, right? Aries is mutable energy, so it's changing. It's also correcting, right? It's critiquing energy. It's perfectionism. It's purification and digestive, right? Energy. So it's like spitting out things that we don't need and keeping what helps us to keep us together and helps us become whole and things like that. And so having that full moon makes so much sense right before you go into Aries, where you're like, okay, now it's time to take action because we've cleared out all the debris. We've cleared out any confusion, any kind of messiness or things that weren't really helping, right? And now we can be efficient and move with that efficiency of the Virgo moon, right? We see where things were going, where weren't really working or were working, right? That full moon illuminates everything. And now we can, when we move into the Aries new moon, right? It's like, all right, it's go time. You don't even have to think about it anymore, which is literally Aries energy. It's impulsive. It can be an impulsive energy. It's think before, it's do before you think, right? So at that point, coming out of the full moon in Virgo, it's like you don't have anything to think about because you did all of that already. You did all the organizing throughout the winter. You did all that hibernating. You did all that, creating your blueprints, all that stuff. So now when the Aries time comes, when Aries season comes and Aries new moons and spring is here, it's time to actually literally spring, right? And bloom and blossom and go for it. So, and having that, like I said, again, double down, you're having 2 Aries new moons. That's super powerful. It's really potent energy to go for it. 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 Yeah. And then I've been thinking about the Pluto and Aquarius and how that shift is. Let me back up a little bit because I also want to talk about just the outer planets in general and the timing of things, because we always think of things as happening right away, or this conjunction happened, or this planet changed signs, and that just means everything is going to be different tomorrow, right? It's going to look completely different tomorrow. Everything's going to feel different tomorrow. And what happens with the outer planets, the further out, the slower they are to us, and the longer the effects. The further out, slower they are to us, and the longer the effects. So, for example, Saturn is something that happens over months and even sometimes a few years. So you think of like coming like a Saturn return, it doesn't just happen. It goes exact on a specific day for everybody, right? But you're experiencing it over a time period. So you're not just experiencing it for that one day. You start feeling your Saturn return even before it shifts into that sign, like right at the ends of the sign that it's in prior to your Saturn return, right? So for example, I'm a Saturn in Pisces, and when Saturn was moving towards the end of Aquarius, I was starting to feel that energy. You start to feel that energy being like, that Saturnian energy on your kind of on you, right? And in your life. And I think it's something that's so common that we feel in our late 20s that we don't think of it as this astrological thing. It's like, oh, everybody feels like that when they start to when they're getting close to their 30s, they're starting to feel like, what am I doing in my life? Where am I going? What's happening? But that is a very Saturnian thing to start to feel that as you creep into your late 20s, early, and move into your 30s. And after your Saturn return completes, right, once it moves out of that sign, that doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, my Saturn return's over, like I'm done with that. You still feel the effects of that months, even years later, right? The changes happen, the shifts happening, all that stuff months and years later, which is why you'll see people at their 33rd year, their 34th year, or for example, like there are very specific things that can happen in the midst of the Saturn return that are literally like lifelong changes. People have kids or make a huge career shift, right? Those are very obvious things, but the effects of those things happen for years later, for months later. Like time continues, it doesn't just like this one thing happens and then you're just a completely different person. It's like, right, you have kids or you have a child and you have to now live with that decision or that life change for 18 years. Well, literally, but obviously when you have kids, you never stop being a parent. You know what I'm saying? So Saturn is like things that are literally long term in time, that have a lot to do with time consuming, time, patience, and things like that, all those types of things. So Saturn, so just wanting to throw that out there too, that planets that are further out and are like more slower moving to us, they don't just happen overnight. There's not something that's just changing right here, right now, and then tomorrow I'm a just totally different person and I'm never going back to that person that I used to be, or this situation is just completely over, blah, 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 whatever. So now moving on to Pluto, which has been in Capricorn since 2008. I'm actually going to pull up the Patreon posts that I had made about Saturn and Pluto a while back. I mean, Saturn and Pluto. I mean, Pluto and Capricorn. That sounds so crazy. So Pluto just spent, let's see, 2008. I'm not going to do that math right now, but maybe like some well over a decade in Capricorn. And what we witnessed, or what we experienced, not even just witnessed, but experienced with that transition is right. So first, let's go to what does Pluto, what are the archetypes of Pluto? Is destruction, regeneration, rebirth, transformation, change. I also look at Pluto as treasures, and the things that you find beneath the surface, all that kind of stuff, and excavating, and the kind of extremes of things, those types of things. And so Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto in Capricorn, being that Capricorn represents our structure, our bones, it literally is, Capricorn is representative of the bones in our body, the structure in our body, right? So that is also representative of the structures outside of us, the systems in place, all the things that keeps us kind of in the box, in line, right? Those types of things. And also Capricorn is representative of what we say time, right? Time, and time has a lot to do with like old things, right? Or Capricorn is representative of traditions and things that always worked, right? Capricorn is less likely to be like, let's try something new, like Aquarius, right? Capricorn's like, let's stick to what we know. We don't need to be trying nothing new, right? Can be kind of rigid in that way. That like earth energy is like very, just kind of rigid in a sense. And so Pluto being in this space really has been kind of dismantling and eliminating a lot of the structures and power plays and systems in place that it's time for them to go, right? The time is up. Also, during this Pluto in Capricorn, the US has been experiencing its Pluto return, right? So seeing a lot of things crumbling or falling apart, these systems and stuff like that. And another thing that has come up that I've noticed too is, and I was saying, like, when we moved into 2020, I was talking to maybe my sister or somebody, and we were talking about how a lot of the grandmothers, that kept the families together, did dinners all the time, made sure all the holiday, those grandmothers are dying this decade. They're passing away, like they're moving on. And so I didn't tie that. I wasn't thinking about that in the sense of Pluto changing signs as well. But as I've been kind of thinking and like watching things, I recently had a grandmother pass and I was at the funeral. And, when you go to church, when you go to a Black church, when I go to church, I'm looking for a specific I'm thinking of it as being this very specific experience that I have at church, right? And it was completely different now. Like everything's different, everything's so modernized, everything's so um new age. The pastor was talking about his Jordans and things like that. And it was just like so weird. You know what I'm saying? Because we're really moving into this new phase and like really like feeling those little small details of that Pluto shifting is like so trippy to me, or that kind of the remnants of Pluto moving out of Capricorn. Like that old stuff is gone. And some of it is really sad to think about because we have like a lot of traditions, I think, or like cultural things that I feel like we shouldn't be just discarding. And I feel like so many people are on this like new age, new wave, that there is no balance of like, we need like tradition is just that's what used to work and we don't want to do that anymore. Everything has to be so unconventional or different, or and some of it is just like that very Aquarius energy, which like a rebel with no cause sometimes, just like wanting to just do the opposite. So it's interesting to see it all play out, and I just seeing in the next 20 years that Pluto lives in Aquarius. It's going to be very interesting to watch and be a part of and witness the extreme of new age and modern, what is the word for it, like mob, I don't know, but this modern shit that we're kind of shifting into, that the world is shifting into. And I feel like there's parts of us that really do need to hold on to and keep alive some of the old stuff, because that's what we have to go off of. I feel like those things like traditions and the Capricorn Cancer axis, I feel like is a very family axis. Like the Cancer and Capricorn just remind me of like grandparents and ancestors and roots and things like that. And so moving into this space of like Aquarius, which I think is also beautiful that we get to move into a space of where we are creating the world that we want and the lives that we want and getting more freedom to do so, and allowing that change to happen is so beautiful. But it also, there's something about that stuff dying out that is just so sad and like it's like grieving to me. So I just think that that's interesting. And yeah, I'm curious to see what this preview that we're moving into is going to be like. So we'll get a good little preview of the Pluto in Aquarius from now all the way until June 11th. And then it's going to move back into Capricorn. And you'll really be able to kind of sense and experience the shift, like how that placement is so different or feels in each sign, that planet, because because of that retrograde. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see that. And then I think a lot of too, what will be changing and shifting is, of course, top of the list is like technology, right? Aquarius literally rules technology, advancements, right? Innovation, all that stuff is going to be really trippy to see how our technology, because it's already, I feel like, has advanced so much just within the last 10 years. So it's going to be really crazy and wild to see where it's going to go next in the next 20 years. And we're already kind of seeing like the metaverse stuff, right? The like wider, that very Aquarius like communal and like networking and that type of stuff, and the internet community and all this stuff, and like TikTok and the social media. We see all this stuff already, so it's not, but I I am somebody that I almost am like, where is this gonna go? Like, is this not enough? Like, is this not enough? So I'm really curious to see where are we gonna go now that we're here. And um yeah, with like the virtual reality, all this stuff is really wild to me. And I think that's a big piece of the Pluto in Aquarius. Now, thinking about Pluto and Aquarius in like a personal chart, so for yourself, right? You can think of things such as where is Aquarius in your chart? So when you pull up your birth chart, if you can, I would suggest pulling up your birth chart so you can actually kind of play around and look at what's happening for you with this big transition, because it's going to be happening for 20, probably, I think 20 years. So doing like taking out your chart, looking at the circle, and seeing what space does Aquarius occupy in your chart. And that's going to give you so much insight into what that's going to look like for you. What this very long transit is going to look like for your life. And if it's on one of your angular points, and I think I mentioned this in my last live, like things being on your angular points, that first house, fourth house, first, fourth, seventh, and 10th house. Sorry, I just drew a blank. It's going to be very personal, and it's going to have a lot to do with you changing inside out, right? First house is the self, it's the appearance, it's your outlook, your kind of mindset on life, and the ways that you even approach life and start things. If it's in your fourth house, it's going to have to do with your roots, your parents, your history in a way, those types of things, your home, right? Your emotional kind of baseline, your core, really. If it's in your if Aquarius is occupying your seventh house, that Pluto's moving through that seventh house of your relationships, your one-on-one relationships. And sometimes even more specifically, if you've been in an intimate relationship, or really any kind of relationship for over like 7 years, it's going to have to probably do something specifically with that relationship or your partner. Yeah, those types of things. And maybe if it's not a specific relationship, it could have to do with your business, any agreements that you've made, right? If it's in your 10th house, it's going to have a lot to do with where you're going, your legacy, your image, right? Your public image, those types of things. If Pluto is moving, if you have Aquarius in that 10th house and it's moving through there. So paying attention in your chart where that transit is happening, right? And this is a really long transit, so it's not something you're going to think about every day. Like, it's not like Mercury where it's like, this exactly what happened. Most of our really long transits, like Pluto and stuff like that, we kind of look at them more in hindsight. We can track backwards with them, because that's what that probably was. And you also, I think it's important to notice, and this is where like degrees can be really helpful if you're looking at your chart, noticing the degree that you have planets in, or the house starts at, like what degree, right? Because if you're an early degree person, like maybe you have like, I don't know, your sun in Aquarius or something like that, early in Aquarius. So maybe you were born, you're like a January Aquarian, right? So you're going to have an early degree of Aquarius happening. That Pluto, you're going to feel that immediately. You're going to feel it in a way that is more intense than other people, right? Feeling, right? Especially if it's like one of your personal planets. So like, for example, the sun is our ego. It's our drive. It's the way that we push through life and create things for ourselves, right? And so it's also our conscious mind. So if you have Pluto coming up, like connecting with your sun, you're going to feel that plutonic energy, right? That transformation happening from an inside out, right? You're going to feel those deaths and rebirths and those little transformations happening within you, right? Things are going to feel completely different. And if you're like, and sometimes it can feel really tough. So these are things to know, because when you move through life and you're like, why is this happening? We always kind of feel like this is happening to me, or this is going on for me. And when we know what we're working with or what's happening in our charts, then we can kind of move easier through the world, right? If you have an Aquarius moon, this is going to be big for you. It's going to be really big. It's going to be heavy on your subconscious mind, your habits, right? Your instinct, your intuitive nature, your receptivity, your emotions. The Pluto is going to be heavy on your emotions, right? That Pluto creeping up in Aquarius, if you have your moon in Aquarius, right? Or your Venus in Aquarius, your values, it might even be literally your love life, right? Venus rules love and harmony and beauty. It could have to do with your aesthetic, it could have to do with your style. You might go through a whole style transformation, right? Within the next 20 years, things just change. And 20 years is such a long time that's like, well, duh, people will go through changes, but what will those changes look like specifically for you? We're not talking about like just in general, people change over 20 years, duh, like that's obvious. What is that going to look like specifically for you? And how can you kind of pinpoint and really get to the deeper and more nuances of it for yourself? So yeah. So like Venus is going to literally have something to do, if you have Venus in Aquarius and you're experiencing this transit, it's going to change things around your values, like I said, style, love life, maybe, um what you look at as beautiful and worthy, maybe even your own self-worth is going to change all of those things, right? um if it's Mercury, maybe you have an Aquarius Mercury, it's going to have a lot to do with your processing, your brain, how you think, how you experience, how you calculate and interpret things, how you take in information and put it back out. It's going to have to do with um, your mindset. Mercury rules the mind, our understanding of life and things like that. So Pluto moving around your Mercury, also your day-to-day stuff. So if you have like Aquarius Mercury, there might be transformations happening throughout your day-to-day life. The way you function, your routines and things like that are probably going to change or shift. um let's see, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. If you have an Aquarius Mars, it's going to have a lot to do with your drive, your fight, um, strategy in your life, um, the force in your life. What is your motivation? Those kinds of things. All those things will be kind of changing or transforming or dying and renewing themselves and regenerating and all that kind of stuff with that Mars in Aquarius. How you move and your like aggressions, that type of stuff. And then the outer planets, so like Jupiter, Saturn, those are further out, but you'll still feel and experience them. So if you have an Aquarius Jupiter, you can also, taking it one step further, especially with like outer planets, is Aquarius Jupiter and what house is it in? Maybe you're an Aquarius Jupiter in the fourth house, right? And you have Pluto here. There could be some big shifts, because if you have Pluto energy, you have Jupiter energy in the fourth house of parents, home, land, roots, things like that. And you have Pluto come here with Jupiter here. This could be really beautiful, right? It could be a lot of extremes, like up and downs, but it could turn out like for example, here's like maybe a literal example of that, right? If you have Jupiter in the fourth house and then you have this Pluto transit coming over the next 20 years, you could have some sort of familial death or something like that, or birth. It could be the birth of a new family member or something like that. It could be, with Jupiter, its expansion. So it's going to even exacerbate that Pluto energy, right? So it could even be like a bigger house or something happening with a house or some sort of destruction of like land and then rebuilding of it or something like that. It could be all kinds of different things. It could have to do literally with your core, um your upbringing. It can bring up stuff around your upbringing and your ancestry, right? This Pluto transit could be starting to excavate all kinds of secrets and hidden things from your ancestors and their history and things like that through this transit, that will be super eye-opening or bring forth new stuff or things like abundance or something like that from like your ancestors, right? It could bring up all that kind of stuff, this Pluto in Aquarius transit. And that's an example of Pluto hitting your Jupiter in the fourth house. Obviously, it could be totally different. That's just where my brain is kind of what my brain is pulling with when I'm thinking about the fourth house and the energies of Pluto and Jupiter mixing together, right? For Saturn, you could look at where Saturn in your chart. Maybe your Saturn is in, I don't know, sixth house. Pluto coming in, it could have something to do with your health changing, big changes, big shifts to your health, and having to really um, get your like going through extremes with your health or just your responsibilities, your jobs. It could be like a losing of a job to get a better job or losing of a job to, with Saturn, sometimes it could feel like, the weight of the world is on me. Oh, this is too much. And it's like testing you or pushing you to really live through in your full potential and become limitless within yourself. Right. And Pluto and Saturn energy can feel very harsh, can feel very, what's the word, like daunting, I guess. And so having a transit like that, especially in the sixth house, it could feel like, fuck, these next 20 years, these years or this time of my life was just really rough or really helped me figure out what I really wanted to do that was going to bring longevity for me, right? Not just me working that same job that I've been in for 12 years and I hated it. And Pluto can come in and literally you just decide, I'm quitting this shit today. I'm over it. I'm tired of this. That's Pluto energy. So yeah. Yeah, I think in Aquarius too, with it being an Aquarius, I think it's going to be really nice because Aquarius has an energy Aquarius is air, so it's always moving and is moving up and around, right? It never sinks, it doesn't settle or it doesn't just fill in spaces. It's very much like taking up space and doing things and moving through and pulling other people up with that Aquarius energy. So I think that, which can also, on the other hand, be pulling people down if Aquarius energy is not happy, not nurtured well or unhappy, right? That energy can be very mentally abusive, right? Can be very drab, and put down in a way. So being aware of that as well with the Pluto and Aquarius transit happening, I think, and sometimes with Aquarius too, they can be kind of fixated in their thought or their ways of seeing things. And so I think that a Pluto here will also challenge that, changing our thoughts around things or challenging our thoughts around things, what we believe about things, what we see as right or fit or whatever. You'll see those kinds of things, a lot of the mind changing during this transit in general. And thinking about too, what's kind of interesting is that we also have Uranus, which co-rules Aquarius in modern astrology. That being in an earth sign, being in Taurus right now. So that kind of thing happening where you have Pluto moving through a fixed air sign, and then you have square. It's going to be squaring at some point, or maybe not. No, I don't know, but it'll be basically sign-based square to Uranus and Taurus, and that's an interesting kind of play that's happening, because I think with the Uranus and Taurus, we see a lot of things happening to the Earth in general, a lot of just like wild things happening nature wise. Like we just had snow in the bay. That's never happened before. That's weird. But so that very Uranus and Taurus energy. And then you have Pluto moving into Aquarius, that just moved into Aquarius, bringing on more of this kind of weird, wild energy. I feel like there's going to be a lot of like, woo, kind of like what just happened energy happening with the Pluto and Aquarius transit too. I feel like in Capricorn, it was a little bit more steady and obvious. And I think that in Aquarius, it's also just good to, this sounds so corny, like expect the unexpected. Like just expect that things will change in ways that you didn't think of, or that you didn't know they could change, which can be a really cool and beautiful thing, because sometimes I feel like with Capricorn, we could be so stuck in, I think with like the Pluto and Capricorn, we could be so stuck in that this is what it is. This is very obviously like the structure, the problem, right? And as we move into Aquarius, we realize, I think that as Pluto moves into Aquarius, we'll realize that a lot of it is our mind. A lot of the problem is comes from our own minds, us creating these issues, or us creating or just assimilating to these ideals and these quote unquote lies or things, right? Because we can look at something and say, oh, obviously this is a problem, or look outside of ourselves and say, this is the problem, this is the structure that created this is a system that created this is blah blah blah. And yes, that's true, but it also is like how, I think a lot of the Pluto and Aquarius is going to be like that that destruction and rebirth of our own mental process. And how are we contributing to those problems? How did we also co-create these structures, these systems, these issues, right? A lot of it starts with our mind, and Aquarius being a mental sign and Pluto moving into that, we're going to have a lot of reflection in our brain happening, or just being like, whoa, delusions coming out, seeing our own delusion, seeing our own being faced with and having to excavate and really do the inner deeper work around what our minds have created for ourselves, the co-creation of our own realities, if that makes sense. I think that is a good way to put it. Whereas back in Capricorn, Capricorn is an earth sign, so it's all about physical things. So finding something tangible to be like, this needs to go. This is what's getting destroyed. These things, right? These tangible things, these things that we can touch, see, experience, feel, or see with our own eyes, hear with our own ears. These very tangible things is very what kind of the Pluto in that earth sign Capricorn was giving us. And now that it's moving into Aquarius, it's things that you can't see. It's in the mind, it's your mind, how we've assimilated, how we've been delusional, how we've, lied to ourselves about what we did or didn't do to make this the way that it is. Because we can get rid of structures and symbols and things and traditions all day long, but if it's still programmed in us, right, then nothing's changed. We'll create the same systems again. We'll create the same things again. So I think that the Pluto moving into Aquarius is going to be a big, like, how have you played into this? How has your mind played into this, right? Because the mind is where everything starts. It starts with a thought. It starts with a thought. So we'll be kind of feeling or experiencing that that destruction and that regeneration of our minds in a way. And I think we already see this because there is so much talk about mental health, right? A lot of people are going through a lot of shit mentally and experiencing kind of breakdowns in their mental health. So I think too, a lot of the Pluto and Aquarius is going to have, you're going to see that on a level that is going to be extreme, because Pluto is all about extremes. So we're going to see it just skyrocket and then kind of come back and skyrocket and come back. Either like, I think wherever Pluto goes, it's like there's no middle ground almost. Like it's like you're either this way or that way. And so we'll see the destructions or people rebuilding or regenerating or, going through that transformation, because a lot of people are scared of change. And so we think of Pluto as a negative thing. But with Pluto and the idea of destruction and rebirth, there is like pain in that, right? If you think about childbirth, women don't go through childbirth without experiencing discomfort and pain, right? And that's why they do things like rely on their breath, like, right? They do affirmations. My sister, she did like affirmations and all this stuff to mentally prepare herself, mentally prepare her physical body to birth a child, right? And birth is not some flowery, pretty process. It's literally a death and a birth all at once, right? For the child and the mother. Think about being a baby and pushing through one world into a whole new world. Pushing through the structure, right? The bones of another body, right? Like all these things, that is Pluto energy. And it's not always pretty or easy like we want things to be. And I don't really know where we got this idea of things just being either one way or the other, because we're born with every emotion. We're born complete and whole. And so this idea that you're only supposed to feel one way at one time all the time, or you have to, just these very kind of rigid ways that we've forced ourselves to think into or be, is what I think that a lot of the Pluto and Aquarius is going to be bringing up and having us face within ourselves, our own rigid thinking, right? Which is very Aquarius, because Aquarius is a fixed air sign. So fixed mental energy. Think about your belief systems, what you thought was right, what you've always thought was right, or even like things that you just thought because someone else told you, because you wanted to go against something else, which is also very Aquarius, right? That rebel with no cause, that rebellious energy, right? And sometimes when we're operating in a, I guess, for lack of a better word, like the lower vibration of Aquarius energy, it is that very rebel with no cause. It is that very just, I want to just be different and I just want to be oppositional energy, right? Or that kind of like, I'm smart, you're dumb kind of energy. And so having to challenge all of that within ourselves, because you remember that Aquarius is opposite Leo. Aquarius and Leo are the same. They're different sides of the spectrum. A lot of ego, right? Working with the heart and the mind. Working with that fixed energy and how we move through life, right? Leo is moving through the world in a, stop biting my plant. Stop. Leo is moving through the world from our kind of singular perspective, from our creative perspective. And then Aquarius is finding the people that also share that with us, our dreams and aspirations, our tribe and things like that, and moving further with that. Yeah. Or taking something and making it even better, right? That type of energy. And so, yeah, I think those are some of the things that come up when I think about the Pluto moving into Aquarius. Yeah, I also noticed too, and this might be kind of, what's the word, like controversial to talk about, but even things like all the changes people have been making to their physical bodies, if you notice, like Pluto and Capricorn. And I didn't think about it like this until now, as I'm like rambling and talking. But a lot of the people getting a lot of surgeries and doing all this stuff to their literal physical bodies, right? I'm not talking about, and changing your physical body because of mental things going on, right? Having mental discomforts or issues or things around like what you think or what, society has told you how to be, things like that. And then literally getting surgery to change your physical body, right? We see it everywhere. Like women get surgery, like everybody, not even just women, like literally everybody. You can see so many people have so much like plastic surgery or this or that, or surgeries to change their gender, things, all these things. And then I think as Pluto moves into Aquarius, it's going to be a matter of like actually dealing with the mental aspect of all of that. And it makes me a little nervous because I think that some of it will come down to people experiencing like mental breaks, or realizing that whatever the issue or ailment may have been or thing that they're dealing with, that wasn't maybe the only solution or the root, right? Having to get to the root of things, which starts in our minds and what we experience in our brains. Yeah, so that piece of it too makes me I'm curious to see what's also going to happen with things like plastic surgery and all these this access to like how easy it is to just, I don't feel like this today, or I don't like this part of my body, and then it'd be so easy to just be like, well, just go get surgery for it. Like that, to me, that is strange to me that is the go-to solution. And I think that Pluto moving into Aquarius will remind us that probably isn't the actual solution. Because if you think about things, and this is me coming from a body worker perspective, I'm like being a massage therapist and learning about the body and all these things, surgeries are last resort. We're not meant to be using surgery the way that we use it now. Surgery is organized trauma to the body. I'm going to repeat that. Surgery is organized trauma to the body. You are not supposed to just be able, I just don't think, this is my opinion, I don't think that we should just be able to go and get a surgery just because it's very dangerous. It's so dangerous. You can die. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's deadly. Surgery is like you get shot and they need to get the bullet out right away. That makes sense. You get in an accident, something gets fucked up and they need to go in and fix that right there, right now, or it's like do or die. And I think that is not fair and it's not right that and a lot of it is about money. You make a lot of money. Surgeons make a lot of money. And if you get surgery, you're going to need a lot of medication, right? And Big Pharma makes a lot of money. So I think that during Pluto and Aquarius, we'll find that this like quick fix lifestyle or these quick fix things that we've decided to just do are not it's gonna be shown and proven that wasn't it. And you kind of can see that now. I see people like doing things like, I've seen like celebrities being like, I'm getting rid of this, or I went too far with all these like fillers or all these things that I did to my face or my body, like wanting to backtrack and then realizing like, that all this stuff. I literally read an article about, maybe it was like Courtney Cox or something like that. One of those white women. And she was saying that she got all this stuff took it out of her face that she had just kept doing, and she didn't realize how far she was going with it, because she looking at herself every day is like, oh, I just did a little bit of this, or I just changed a little bit of this, and then you just wake up one day and you look totally different. You don't even look like yourself anymore, or things like that, right? And so she was like talking about how it was a deeper issue with how she felt about herself. And so it's like, I think that that'll be a big piece of Pluto and Aquarius, is all I'm saying. I'm kind of rambling now, but yeah, this idea, we're having to address the mental aspect of all the things that we do physically, or that we did physically, right? Physically being the Pluto and Aquarius time period. I mean, Pluto and Capricorn time period, moving into a mental Pluto period. Working with our minds, deconstructing our minds to rebuild our minds, our thought processes. And that's also goes for the outer world, right? What happens inner happens outer. Is reflective of what's happening outer, and vice versa. So seeing the structures being broken down and destroyed to be rebuilt and repaired. So also seeing the mindsets and the mental programming and stuff that allowed for those things to happen. The mental, what's the word? Convincing and all this stuff, whatever I can't think of the word right now, but basically the programming and the manipulation, that's the word I'm looking for, manipulation that has happened, having to really like look at that and break that down, and seeing that and seeing like, whoa, like how we played a part in that, and how we accepted or ignored or went along, or just we're doing our job, right? So many people, I felt like during the Pluto and Capricorn, there were so many times people were like, well, I'm just doing my job. Like, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. It's like, even that doesn't sound crazy to you, especially when it comes to like like literal human interaction or issue, right? I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. Okay, but you also hear that you're not a robot. You're here to actually like be a human. And I think that, right, that humanitarian aspect of Aquarius, that Pluto moving into Aquarius, that is going to really change things. And we're going to have to deal with that as well. And all the destruction of those ideas of like, just all of the, literally, I mean, I can't say it enough. All of the programming and all the mental blocks and like compartmentalizing we've done to exist and keep running these same narratives, these same systems, these same structures, and allowing them to keep going on for so long. We're going to have to address what's in our minds and how we play into things. So yeah, I think that is everything that's coming to my mind around it. And like I said, if you missed it a little bit earlier, I talked about just like figuring out where in your chart it's going to be specific to you for the next 20 years, right? So if you look at the circle chart, the actual diagram, and find the space that Aquarius is taking up in your chart. And if you're looking from a Placidus point of view, it might be in multiple houses, like 2 houses. But if you're looking from like a whole house system where or equal house system, is going to be in one specific house. And you can also see if you have Aquarius planets, so especially personal planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, you're going to feel it at some point within these 20 years on a level that is different or more extreme or more potent, not extreme, but I'll say potent than other people. If you have close, especially Sun and Moon, because Sun and Moon is literally subconscious brain, conscious brain, emotions, ego, right? It's the comforts that we want in our life is the Moon. The drive that we have in life is the Sun. The things that we go after. The Moon is how we draw in and stay in our comfort zone, right? And then also looking at the house status in your chart, because that's also going to give you another big clue, right? Like I said, I talked a little bit about like Jupiter. I brought up the example of Jupiter and that Pluto hitting your Jupiter in their fourth house, right? If you're maybe in Aquarius fourth house. I'll give another example. Maybe you are a, let's use the sun or moon, for example. Maybe you're a, dang, I'm trying to think. I need a placement because no things. Oh, we'll use like the ninth house. Ninth house is a house of belief systems, beliefs. It's the house of like higher education. So thing like college or things that we learn beyond what we're supposed to know, right? Things that kind of feed our soul in a way. It's also um things such as like it carries things outside of like religion, like astrology or stuff like that. And so ninth house, we'll just say for simple terms, it's the belief house, right? And then let's say you have Pluto transiting that belief house, and maybe you are a ninth house sun, right? So, oh, it also rules like foreign things. So things that are outside of our everyday lifestyle or norm, and can sometimes also talk about like literally long distance travel or like publishing, stuff like that. So yeah. So for example, you have Pluto moving through that ninth house, and we're going to use beliefs right now as an example, but just know that that energy can manifest in many different ways. That house has different um indications, right? But we're going to use belief. So Pluto moving through your ninth house, and then maybe you have a ninth house sun here. So maybe so having a ninth house sun, who you are and like what you strive for in life has a lot to do with your belief system. And maybe you might be like, this person could be like a pastor or some sort of preacher or some sort of wellness guru or some sort of guru. I don't know, whatever. This is just a very, very watered down example. And you have Pluto moving through there. Pluto is going to come and it's going to challenge everything you believed, everything you studied to get to the point where you are this, guru or pastor or whatever. It's going to, it's going to reconstruct all that and make you look at everything, and it's going to excavate all the history of that belief. Where did this come from? What made you believe that? What made you think that that was the right way? Who were your teachers? Right? It's going to make you excavate all that and dig into all of that. And that's going to create a change. It's going to create death, right? You might lose respect for some of your teachers or the people that came before you. You might learn things about them that make you look at them like, wait, what? You were saying all this? You taught me this, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I found this in your past, all this stuff is going to pull out all that, excavate it. And then you're reborn. You get to renew and regenerate, right? Like I said, Pluto is like literally the birth process, pushing from one world into a new world. And it's not a comfortable or pretty situation. It's beautiful. Birth is a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing, but it's beautiful and amazing because of everything that comes with it, not because it's seamless and women just pop out a baby. No, they go through all kinds of shit. That baby is struggling to fit and push through those bones, right? That mother is struggling to push that baby out, having to connect with her breath and all these things and having to remember this and going into a period of like, just leave me the fuck alone. I don't want to be bothered. Like, like having to breathe and cry and be ugly and not so, put together anymore. That is what Pluto is all about. And so it's a beautiful process, but you have to trust yourself. You have to allow yourself to find the treasure within it, right? You have to allow yourself to dig into those things and not be afraid to go there. Not be afraid to go there with your mind and finding the support, right? Aquarius is all about support systems. It's all about community. So a big thing with Pluto moving into Aquarius too is finding the support that you need to process, to get through things. You shouldn't be doing it alone. None of us should be doing it alone. None of us should be doing it alone. Healing is so relational. Healing is relational. We don't even sometimes know we're experiencing or we have a certain trauma until we get into a relationship with somebody else and they bring it up for us and we're like, what the fuck is going on? I didn't even know I still felt like that. I didn't even know that. I didn't even remember that happened to me when I was a kid. And now it's coming back up because I'm experiencing something that is triggering it into this relationship. And it could be something positive that triggers it, or it could be something negative, right? So Pluto in Aquarius is community support, finding your people, finding the resources and things that you need to address, deconstruct, destroy, and rebirth your mental processes. Yeah. And that's all I've got for today. So I hope this live was helpful, and please feel free to comment or let me know what you think. Thank y'all. I appreciate y'all, and I hope y'all have a good rest of your Sunday. Have a good week, and I will see y'all next time.